Good morning, Elmira Baptist Church. I'm here and you're here, and I thank you for joining me for the weekly update for Thursday, May 9th, 2024. We're just cruising right into summer. I was talking with Cindy this morning that, boy, just time's flying. We're already here in May. This coming Sunday is Mother's Day. Then we have our Memorial Day with our Memorial Day picnic. Then June's here. And of course, end of June, beginning of summer is our Vacation Bible School. Whew, time's just flying by. But I am glad that you've joined me today for our update. We're going to look later at 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verse 12, that says, "Even so ye, for as much as ye are zealous of spiritual gifts, seek that ye may excel to the edifying of the church," the edifying of the church. And the quote of the day is not from a Christian man, but he says this about life, quote, "Perhaps true greatness or a truly great person is someone who does the right things for the right reasons without expecting grand rewards. They don't do things to be the best or to be famous or to be a legend. Instead, they sacrifice those ambitions in favor of simply doing what people around them need. They want to be great only through being useful to those they care about most, regardless of how little acclaim they get from the whole wide world for it." End quote. Now that goes along with our statement about spiritual gifts and the edifying of the church, but also it goes along with being a mother. I know that very few mothers will ever be recognized for the work that they do, but I am certain it just makes sense to my human mind that when we get to eternity and we stand before God, some of the ones who will get the greatest gifts will be mothers who poured into the lives of their children. So this Sunday is Mother's Day, and I hope you're finding a way to honor your mother. On Sunday would be a great day to do it, but if you can't do it on Sunday for some reason, then please find a way to honor your mother this week. And I know that for a few of you, Mother's Day is an emotionally difficult day because perhaps you had a mother who wasn't there for you, just plain selfish, or even abusive. And so for you, Mother's Day is a difficult day, and my heart goes out to you. You can trust God. You can ask for His grace. His grace is sufficient for all things. And remember that we have a just God who will judge. And so maybe not this side of eternity, but on the other side of eternity, you will see justice done. But many of us have good mothers. We have godly mothers who have blessed us. They put their own children's interests, they put their children's interests before their own. And after all, isn't that what love really is? And so for those of us who have mothers like this, we're so grateful. And I'm grateful for my mother. So in the morning, I want to speak to mothers directly to encourage them and to give them some things that they should pass on to their children. Read Proverbs chapter 6, verses 1 through 23, and consider what mothers can learn from that passage. And it says there in verse 20 to forsake not the law of thy mother. Now, Sunday evening, we're going to be particularly blessed. It's going to be an exciting evening because Dan and Jennifer Post are going to be with us. Elmira Baptist Church has supported them for many years before I was even here. And for many years they were in Africa, and then God took their French skills they had learned there and moved them to New Brunswick, French-speaking Canada, and there they are planting a church in St. Quentin. Not San Quentin, St. Quentin. And we have just an opportunity, this isn't the train's going by. We have an opportunity this Sunday to be with them. They're going to be with us, and we're going to present them with a $25,000 check to help them purchase the building in which their church currently meets. $25,000. And we've agreed as a church that we are going to give this to them, and this Sunday will be the Sunday we actually put that check into their hands. Now, some of you may be wondering, how does that work? We have our own costs that we're trying to pay for this building, and how are we going to give money to another church? Well, here's the quote that I want you to remember from Proverbs. Proverbs 11:25 says, "The liberal soul shall be made fat, and he that watereth shall be watered also himself." I have seen this church over and over. You and I give generously to someone else, and God meets our needs, because the liberal soul shall be made fat. Now, liberal and fat, two things we don't think are good, right? But liberal means a generous person. He himself will have more than he needs. And the person who waters will be watered also himself. So I want to encourage you that we're going to give this check with joy and with excitement to this other church, to bless this other church in New Brunswick, and God's going to take care of our needs. Speaking of generosity, I want to bring two other things to your attention. In addition to this money that we'll be giving the post from our missions fund, you gave love offerings to the Schmidts, and those love offerings totaled $2,962. Let that sink in. $2,962 in love offerings. We've supplemented that with a few $100s from our special speaker fund, and we sent them a check. And then this last Sunday, for our camp scholarships, we had baked goods available to you, and you came and gave generously to that. That Sunday alone, you gave $899.25. I was mentioning this to my daughter. She said, I'll throw in the other 25 cents. So let's just make it an even $900 to the Camp Scholarship Fund. Thank you for your generous giving. The Lord will bless you. And if you haven't had a chance to give, it's not too late to give to camp, and it's not too late to give to missions. Just put those details on your offering envelope and give that this Sunday. So here's the upcoming events. Of course, this Sunday, Mother's Day, May 12th. On May 18th, Saturday, May 18th, is our EBC ladies event. It's called Be a Blessing. It's a tea/luncheon, and you can sign up for that, both to attend and also sign up to bring food on the sign-up sheets. We need you to do that this Sunday. And men, if you need to stay home and take care of children, you do that. However, if you can join us, we'll meet for prayer at 9 o'clock, and then we're going to go out at 10 o'clock as normal on May 18th to do some visiting. So that's on May 18th. May 26th, Sunday school, morning worship, then our food and fellowship, followed by our praise and testimony time. That day, John Nordstrom will be with us to report on his trips to Cuba and to Ghana. And then the next day, Monday, May 27th, Memorial Day, is our Memorial Day picnic at Magnolia Park, Pavilion A. Sunday, June 2nd, is our graduate recognition night. And also on that day, we'll have our second VBS meeting in the afternoon. And Vacation Bible School is Monday through Friday, June 24th to June 28th. So, boy, a lot of things on the schedule. Now, I've tried to include a few news items in the last couple updates. And today's news item, a little bit different, but please hear me out and think about this with me. Interest rates. Now, I know some of you are going to say, it doesn't matter. I paid off my home, I paid off my car, I don't owe anyone money, and that is the position that I want all of us to get to. I do have a mortgage on my house, and I'm paying on that, but the goal is to get to be debt-free. And some of you already have your rates locked in. My mortgage rate, it's locked in. It's not going to change. So you may say, interest rates doesn't matter. But I'm not talking about interest rates on your house or on your car or on your loans. I'm talking about interest rates for the federal government. We have a federal debt. It's up to over $30 trillion. That's with a T. And that debt has to be financed. And the way government debt is financed is through treasury bills and treasury bonds. And so what happens is, as those treasury bills or treasury bonds expire, then the government issues new treasury bills and treasury bonds to pay off the old ones. And so the government debt is not locked in the same way your mortgage rates, my mortgage rates, are. It's a little bit different system. And what that means is every year, bonds that are coming to fruition, they're paid off, and the government issues new bonds. Now, that's great if the old interest rates were higher, but for the last 10, 15 years, really, the interest rates have been very low. So almost all of that debt that is being retired or being refinanced is being refinanced at a higher rate than it was. Let me just read to you what I have learned. Over the next year, because of the need to turn over, to refinance these Treasury bills and Treasury bonds, interest costs will increase from $1 trillion to $1.6 trillion. That's with a T, trillion with a T. $1 trillion to $1.6 trillion, and that means that our federal government needs to increase its budget by $600 billion just to service the debt, just to pay the interest on the debt. The current national debt is over $34.5 trillion, and we're currently adding about $1 trillion every 100 days. That's just in spending, not including the added interest. So over the next 12 months, we have $7.6 trillion of debt that needs to be refinanced. Now, I don't share that with you to scare you. God is good. He is in charge. And God's always going to provide for His people. We can trust Him. But I want to make you aware that the United States is on a crash course with debt. Now, I have all my life heard about the national debt. 1980s, they were working on changing the tax code, and we went from debt being 30% of our gross domestic product to nearly 50% of our GDP. And then in the 90s, you remember at the end of the 90s, we had the dot-com crash. Bubble came up, everyone was going to be millionaires, and then it crashed, and what are we going to do? And so debt was going to issue there. And then you remember the housing crisis, 2007, 2008, 2009, and again, the housing market crashed, and what are we going to do with debt? This time it's a little different, and I'm not predicting the end of the world, but there are a few factors that are different. In all of those other cases, the government bailed out us. COVID, government bailed us out. Now, we're going to be asked to bail out the government. At some point, we're going to be asked to bail out the government. And what is not important is just the number of the federal debt. What is important is the ratio of federal debt to the gross domestic product. In other words, if you took all of the money that the United States makes in 1 year, creates in 1 year, all the wealth that the United States creates in 1 year, what is that compared to what we owe? And it has gone over 100%, and it's climbing. We're now up to about 121%. That is, we owe more money than we create in a year. Now, Americans were once known for paying back debts. I know my dad took very seriously paying people back, whether there was a formal document signed or not. I had a friend, a little bit older than me, generation between me and my dad, who had to declare bankruptcy, but he went ahead and paid back all of that money with interest. He just used the bankruptcy to refinance it. It all got paid back. But do you think the current generation, and we're talking about the same generation that is clamoring for their student debt to be forgiven, do you think they'll pay back the money that's owed? Even if the debt was incurred by previous generations? I think we have a change in Americans' attitude towards debt. And servicing the debt is simply becoming a larger and larger part of the national budget. I mentioned that over the next year, as those Treasury bonds and bills turn over, that the cost to service those Treasury bonds alone will go from $1 trillion to $1.6 trillion. So that's an extra $600 billion that the federal government needs to finance to spend just to keep the debt, to pay the interest on the debt. So here's my advice to you. I think we're headed for some new economic territory, new economic reality. I think borrowing is going to continue to be more expensive. I don't think you're going to see mortgage rates and other forms of interest rates go down to the 2 and the 2.5% again for a long time. So what that means conversely is that saving money will be more profitable. See if you can find ways to spend less than you make and begin to save money. And depending on the government to bail us out is going to either become less likely or more costly. Unfortunately, it seems like we have a government who's bent on buying people's votes, giving people money so that we'll vote for the government. Well, that's going to cost us more. So here's my final piece of advice. Learn to trust the Lord. Just learn to trust the Lord. Don't look to government to bail you out. Look to the Lord to provide for you. Just my advice. All right, as we get to some prayer requests, I want you to pray for the building project. You may have heard, news came out yesterday, but Elmira Baptist Church's permit has been approved, and we should be able to start moving forward more rapidly now on this building project. I was talking to our general contractor yesterday, Kenny is his name, about how we get from where we are today until we can move into that building. And as I've said before, moving into the building means we can use it, but there will be ongoing projects within the building even after we move in. But how do we get from here to where we can use that building? And he told me, and I'll mention this again Sunday night, it's going to be about a 5 to 6 month process. And we're still looking at the budget. However, I know that we have about $230,000 in the building fund, and we're going to need over $300,000 to get into the building. So, again, we're going to trust the Lord. We'll talk more about these things as I have more details. Let me finish up. 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verse 12 says, "Even so ye, for as much as ye are zealous of spiritual gifts, seek that ye may excel to the edifying of the church." Seek those spiritual gifts that edify and build up the church. I'm on this topic because someone recently asked me about spiritual gifts. And I've noted that a lot of times when people say, "Pastor, I want to talk to you about spiritual gifts," what they really want to know is, what about speaking in tongues? Now that's interesting to me. And that's interesting to me because speaking in tongues is only one of the various spiritual gifts that's mentioned in the Bible. And it doesn't even appear to be the most significant. Listen to what 1 Corinthians 12, verses 29 through 31 say. 1 Corinthians 12, 29 through 31 says, "Are all apostles?" The whole chapter has been about spiritual gifts. He mentions apostles. Are all apostles? Rhetorical answer, no. Are all prophets? Again, no. Are all teachers? No. Now those are the first three gifts that are mentioned. We're not even speaking in tongues yet. And the next one isn't speaking in tongues. Are all workers of miracles? No. Have all gifts of healing? No. Do all speak with tongues? No. Do all interpret? But covet earnestly the best gifts. The best gifts. Speaking in tongues is even at the top of that list. And, this is what the Bible says, "Yet show I unto you a more excellent way." And then, of course, 1 Corinthians 13 is all about love. "If I speak in the tongues of men and angels and have not charity, I'm a sounding gong, clanging cymbal." Listen, there are more important things than speaking in tongues. Why is it that when we think of spiritual gifts, speaking in tongues is the first thing that comes to our mind? Let's push that out of our mind. We're looking for spiritual gifts that edify, that build up our church. Spiritual gifts that make our church better. Now, a couple of quick points, and I'm not going to preach on this morning. I will get to it, Lord willing, here in the next few months. But every one of us is given a gift. If you are a saved person, if you are a child of God, if you're part of the family of God, you have a gift. And that gift has been given to you to edify the church. Here's the second principle. People aren't always going to see the results of our gift. People may not even see how we use that gift in the church. That's the truth of it. I'll be candid with you. I don't think my greatest spiritual gift is my public speaking ability. People see that every Sunday. They come in, they hear me speak, they like it or they don't. That's not the point. The point is, I don't think that's my best spiritual gift. I'm not trying to be a great orator or a great speaker. I'm trying to be a great pastor, and that's different. I have a little saying that I remind myself of occasionally. The definition of a good servant: nobody notices what he does until he doesn't do it. That's my definition of a great servant. Nobody knows what he does until he doesn't do it. So you may be using your spiritual gift and nobody notices. Now that's distinctly different than the attitude that seeks to speak in tongues. Most people I know, I'm not saying all, most people I know who seek to speak in tongues want to do it publicly or want to talk about it publicly so that people notice how spiritual they are, which is the exact opposite of what Paul says is true spirituality. True spirituality doesn't seek to be noticed for its greatness. True spirituality seeks to bless others through ministry, even if that ministry is unseen. So I want to encourage you that you may have some unseen ministry in you. You may be working with children and you feel like nobody is noticing that I'm working with those children. Maybe not, but God sees. And your ministry to children may set them on a path to serve the Lord in amazing ways. Your ministry may be some unseen part of our church. And in the back of your head, you're thinking, nobody even notices. Listen, use your gift to edify, to build up our church, and it doesn't matter if anyone sees or not. God knows, and God is faithful. God will reward you. And let me be completely frank. Here's the truth. You would rather be honored by God and rewarded by God than honored by men. So use your gift to build up our church. And if you're not using your gift, pray that the Lord would open up doors of opportunity and realize that those open doors, nobody else may see them. Only God may know. Join us this Sunday, Mother's Day. We're going to meet at 9:45 for Sunday school right here in this room. 9:45 for Sunday school, 11 o'clock for morning worship. We will meet again at 5 o'clock when we'll present that check from our missions fund to the posts to help their church get into their building. And boy, it'll be a great Sunday. Don't miss it.